It's done.
Get it done as quickly as possible. So we have a number of operating budgets yet to be covered. And I have a list, but this is the wrong list, so this must be the correct list. So we had Parks and Rec celebrations on hold.
Flowers.
And based on what you sent us, Greg, the $1,000 flowers is a separate. And Gail John Brown just joined us for your information.
So that could be added to the memorial. The account, so we already have a line out for memorial. If we add 1,000, then 1,000 of it goes to the flowers. That's one way of doing it. So if you look at the other.
So we moved the memorial to 4,000. Okay. Anyway,
Sorry, I'm late.
no problem. We're on a roll tonight. So the total celebration budget would be 14,000 then.
There was a brief discussion about the police details, the police overtime that's needed. And whether or not we felt that it would be appropriate to put those dollars into the 4th of July account. Currently, it's covered out of the overtime account with
Yeah.
police.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk about it, but I thought we were leaning towards not, like, just leave where it is, understanding that, yeah, someone might have the awkward question and ask about the OT and the police budget, and then there's just, the answer is, well, X dollars of that police OT relates to select board.
And I think going forward in future years, I think it would be helpful if in that OT budget, we understood exactly what
Give a
was
little more
for 4th
detail,
of July, what was for Memorial, so it was clear it wasn't just covering staff shifts.
Yeah, if anything, to that point, you might even have, if you could, if it's not hard for Andrew, you have a separate row
Something.
within police so that you can,
Right.
but you want to keep it in its home.
Yeah.
This police.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I think.
okay. Do I have a motion to approve $14,000 for the Parks and Rec public celebrations? Andy moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dean seconds. Any discussion? Take a roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yeah.
Yes.
Lori.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what my topic is. Okay, so we got the celebrations done. Okay. Building we did. Treasure was on hold for insurance.
For insurance.
Yeah,
And so we provided a new number. So the increase on the rate a little higher than I was hoping. We did plug in 8. I was hoping we were coming closer to 5. And the number is 7.15. We've done really well the last 6 years. But I think we're going to see a few years of close to double digit. Hopefully we can stay on the double digit. And then, so this current year budget, 1.3 and change. We're spending every penny of that this year. We've had a few additional staff who were on a spouse or program switch over to the town. And so that budget, the number we use this year is a good number. So we increased that, the 7.15, and then added 2 more. There in the plan. One is the net. We're dropping dispatchers, but we're adding 2 and 2, 2 fire, 2 police.
There's the answer. So that's the netting that you did. I couldn't understand the numbers.
Yes, that was the net, and then I added 1 more if we get another person switching over. So that's how that number came to the 1.471, 720.
wait a minute, what was it? 1, 4, 7, 1, 7,
720. Yes.
Piece of paper. It's a head.
So in what I sent you today, should it be in the summary form, you have that?
Yep. That's up about 35 grand from the original.
Yes,
Got it, clear up.
right,
Right.
yes. It's an increase of about 39,000 from. what was in the-
So my only comment, suggestion, we've talked about that, you made the point in your email, you said part of this is because spouses are coming over, right? And all I would suggest, I'm not gonna get the vernacular right, but that benefit where you pay people to actually
Opt
opt
out.
out.
Yes, we
You know.
do offer that. Maybe we need to sweeten the pot.
Number one, look at sweetening the pot. Number two, I think you mentioned it's like union by union or department,
It is-
and
it-
you
it's-
said like in some places we do and some we don't. I'm just saying, the more that we, do new contract negotiations, let's,
Yeah.
bring it into the mix if it's not already there.
We are introducing a high deductible plan this year. Part of negotiations, we'll see how that goes.
I deductible with like an HSA.
Yes, couple it with an HSA. Saves about 10% on our premium.
Okay. So. I guess,
And then the FICA went up about 7,000.
and that's for the 4 new position,
That was an adjustment.
and there was also a reduction for dispatch,
Again, the netting the difference.
okay. Because I'm gonna want to know exactly. What the health savings and the FICA savings are with respect to dispatch.
Right.
So that I incorporate into my report regarding dispatch savings versus
Yes.
police department additions. Okay. But I'm meeting with Andrea on Monday, so we're gonna
Walk through those.
finalize the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the casualty and liability, I think I could be wrong, looking for just some high level, like, deductibles, what's our total coverage on liability?
What is it?
Yeah, it'd just be good to know,
So on general liability, we have a $7,000 deductible.
Do you know the coverage, the liability, like 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million?
I don't know that offhand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Andrea on the line?
Andrea, do you know?
She might be able to quote that better than me.
Yes, I can pull it up. Like, we have different limits for different things.
Okay.
Same thing, we have different deductibles for different things, so it's hard to just say like, we're not covered with just like one amount. Depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah, no, I totally understood. I get it. So I'm asking specifically general liability, what's the dollars we're covered for and what's the deductible? And then property, what's the deductible, what's the coverage?
I mean, we can certainly get you a summary of those.
Yeah. It's just, in general, I've done a lot of this work, in my professional life, and what I found is, when you are willing to raise the deductible, you get nice premium savings. And, the purpose of insurance is not to fix your side mirror, right? It's so that if your whole house burns down, you got the money, right? So, same with general, like $7 sounds tiny for deductible, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, it's just worth exploring, what you get in terms of reduced premium for
Premium versus the
reducing the
deductible.
deductible.
Yeah.
Not suggesting at all reducing the coverage, right? The coverage you want.
Yeah, actually, we meet with them annually. And that is a discussion point that we do bring up. And we've had them run numbers for larger deductibles and the price savings isn't significant. So we've kept it as it has been.
I'd be more than willing to join in that because I've found the opposite quite a lot in the private sector where like, you raise the deductible and you almost save in 1 year, in premium.
Oh, yeah, we haven't seen that, but absolutely. Mhm.
What time of year do you meet with them?
Look,
Usually in the late summer, fall.
Okay. Let me know.
Yep. Happy to have you join us.
Who's the broker?
Well, it's through what's called Maya, which is the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association.
Okay. So I guess rather than vote on the treasurer's budget as a whole, we do it. Based on breakdowns that we're gonna bring that to send to us today. Because otherwise I would add everything. So, do I have a motion to approve the treasurer collector salaries and expenses in the amount of $200,178?
I'll make that motion.
Andy moves, do I have a second?
I'll say.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
If you want to just sort of list these next groupings.
You want a total number?
No, I'm just, you can read off the individual numbers and then just approve
One
them
vote,
as one
okay.
vote.
Okay,
Just speed it up a little.
What's getting added in there? I'm just curious, yeah.
the treasurer, that's salaries and expenses. That's just for the department.
Right.
That doesn't include any of the town level. Like that sort of thing, which we're gonna vote on now,
Right, so it's like the 167 plus.
plus the 32,
18.
225.
Okay, so basically, everything except the insurance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Got it.
So I'll list out the next items and then we'll vote on all. of them. Contributory pensions, $1,628,887. Group health insurance, $1,471,720. Workers' comp, 100,000. Fire auto liability, 135,000. Unemployment comp, 7,000. FICA Medicare, 118,796. Do I have a motion to approve those amounts?
So moved.
Andy moves, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dean seconds. Any discussion? Questions?
So this is basically the 3 insurance and the pension,
Yes.
Yeah,
all right?
group health liability insurance and then the FICA unemployment and workers' comp plus the contributory pensions.
Then the email pensions getting better than we thought, right?
Yeah, we've been running 7 to 8%. This year came in a little, just right at 4.
And so logically, that's because they made good investment decisions.
It fluctuates with, what percentage of the total fare and our current total salary. So is that, as we have some vacancies, that'll drop a bit.
So it's not the actual cost like you would do in a corporate business.
Mhm.
It's merely what, a percentage of payroll.
Yes,
Doesn't
But
matter
it's
how old
based
they
on-
are or anything.
but it is based on their projection to retire the liability
But it's en masse.
en masse.
They're not looking at Manchester employees and their ages and that sort of thing. They're only looking at payroll.
Correct.
But if you thought it was gonna come in at 8, like, you can't back in and say, on average, all the salaries, we're going up 8%, right? Like, there's gotta be other stuff in there. Right?
No, the 8% is based on their need to catch up for lost time.
So funding.
Right.
So
So there is an investment kind of,
yes, there is.
They calculate it based on actuarial
yeah.
things, but then they allocate it down strictly based on payroll, which to me is strange, but it is what it is.
And do we know when it will be fully funded for pension?
It's projected to be 34, 35, 36, that mid
Has
thirties.
that been stable or pushing back or changing? Or has it been those years roughly?
It's been pretty stable.
Took a big hit in
The-
2000.
There is a a push for this current year to increase the COLA.
Mm.
It's normally capped at 3%. Special legislation was passed to allow them to do a 5% COLA
I see.
based on what's been
So
happening.
that will change it.
So that could, and
Yeah.
I was waiting to hear back from them
Yeah.
on details
Yeah.
of what they think that might add
Would that be for this year or next year?
this year,
Oh,
current year. But we won't see a higher bill.
okay,
It's,
it's just in their calculations, then it'll hit us next year.
or the years beyond.
Okay.
So pensions very different from OPEB, right? In the
Yes.
sense that OPEB, we control a lot of the levers,
Correct.
blah, blah. Pension is just,
We're
we're
having
at the
to,
mercy of a greater,
we're a bit of a pawn.
yeah.
And those things we're in mercy of is in fact the contributory rate as well as inflation and investment performance. I assume these are all players in this
Correct.
calculation.
Now, contributions from employees are set by statute.
I see. They are set by statute. Okay, that's not a negotiating issue.
Right.
Any more questions on these items?
Not
We
here.
ready to vote?
Can you just repeat the numbers again?
Yes. Pensions, 1,628,887. Health, 1,471,720. Workers' comp, 100,000. Liability insurance, 135,000. Unemployment comp, 7,000. FICA Medicare, 118,796.
For a total of.
No
You're doing individuals.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's right. That's right.
Excuse me.
Right, that's. Yeah.
So the two that were different from the original were the health
Yeah.
insurance and the FICA.
Yes, exactly.
It looks like. So the FICA driven by OT and the health insurance by the vendor, right?
Well, and plus we had a form.
And staff.
What was the total, Andy?
3461403.
Thank you. Better than my little fingers. Are we ready to vote? Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Sarah says yes. Okay. Accept that. Now we have police. And I was a little confused with the information given to us at the last meeting. Because it had salaries for 2 police officers in at 240,000, it seemed high to me.
So it's three. Not two. So it's 80 apiece times 3 is 280.
What do you mean 3, you only added 2?
So there's the counting excluded the SRO. Previously. So it's what the request is for 14 plus the SRO.
But we've been paying for the SRO in the summer, or have we not?
On the school, budget, right?
No, not in the summer.
Oh.
Are we adding a new SRO?
No, SRO stays, but in terms of comparing year to year, there was confusion over counting the SRO or not in that 14.
Okay,
I'm still confused on the SRO piece. Like right now, the SRO works a school year and that salary goes to the school.
We get paid, we get revenue in the school, we get reimbursed.
goes in our budget.
It's in our budget, but we get reimbursed from the school.
But did
So
we,
we pay 2/3 of it into the school district and then the school district pays 100%.
Correct.
If I'm following all the flows.
That is correct.
and we weren't paying for the SRO in the summer?
No, we were. It,
Where was
the
filling over?
confusion was counting the 14. So in working with the chief, there was confusion over did the 14 include the SRO or not? And in his mind, it never was to include the SRO.
Why
You know,
not?
in terms of that staffing chart,
I see.
Wasn't part of his force.
he wasn't including the SRO as part of his force to to enable to do the station coverage. So the SRO in the summer is providing the harbor coverage,
Yes.
but he's never had the SRO in that new chart that showed all the boxes, right? For the different shifts. The SRO was never part of that, but it was part of the total of number of staff.
So we're adding 3 positions, not 2.
And then,
If I follow all the flows now, so we pay the school district, call it our 2/3, right? Say 80 is a full year's salary, the school's paying us 60, but that's out of 80, so now obviously the 20 is on us for the summer.
well, but the 20 is on us for the summer, it's always has been. They've only paid for the 9 months.
Sure.
So that has always been in the budget, but again, what I'm getting at is when the chief was counting heads versus Andrew and me counting heads. We were counting the SRO as part of the 14 and he was not. That was the confusion.
So we're adding 3 people.
So in essence, it looks like, yes, it is adding 3 instead of that 2.
How about in terms of dollars? The prior year, what you're telling me, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, 60. No, sorry, the 80 grand was already there, it's just we were getting a check for 60 from the school district.
Yes,
No, but it's different than that, I think, Mike. I think
But-
what,
but
when,
it does show, when you look at the, I don't know if you have the detailed sheet
Right here.
that we provided last meeting.
Oh, the detail from last meeting.
seem to be missing that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So we do show that Sarah, that's what you said, the 240 is that additional 3 officers.
So we're adding 3 positions, not 2.
But we are taking out, so 240 is added, we take out 108 from the reserves line. And we reduce the overtime by 7,000. So you're adding 240 and you're taking out 115.
I'm still confused that it's been in the budget. There's reconciliation over where the money actually comes from eventually.
It wasn't in his.
So that wasn't-
Plan for those shift things. You know, that thing he had
Where
on all
was
the
it?
shifts?
At the very bottom.
Okay, but
SRO was at the very bottom.
So that's gone and it's moved up and up and.
No, that's still there. But in order to do the rest of it, it's not a confusion with what was budgeted or not in
Yeah.
terms of last year's budget versus this year's budget. It was more of, when we put the proposed budget together, we included the SRO as part of the 14. And the chief said, no, I need 14 plus the SRO. So that's where that additional 1 is coming from. It was miscommunication between the chief and Andrew.
You're really only adding 2, because you've already had the SRO
No,
in
they're
here.
adding 3.
In 2 bodies or 2 people.
They're adding 3.
no, they're adding 2, unless
No.
unless I'm missing it, they're
The
adding 2.
SRO is already in here. I mean, I know it's the difference in the 2 numbers.
From a dollar
There's a
perspective,
human being.
Maybe-
doing
maybe-
it.
Please be at.
not from an org chart, fine, maybe, I don't know, but from a dollar perspective. Right, you're telling me prior year, we were paying the full year salary benefits for an SRO, right? We were paying full year. For 2/3 of the year, we were billing the school district, so they were paying us for 75%, whatever, a school year's worth, right? So then we were on the hook financially for the summer.
But we're still funding that position plus 3 new positions.
I don't
Plus
get
3.
that.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe the lady, okay, maybe here.
Let me,
I have a question when there's an opportunity.
Yes, Kathy.
When we met jointly as a select board and FinCom and reviewed the police staffing request, and we took a vote. I thought we voted to add 2 FTEs.
That's correct.
So if there's a discrepancy and a difference, would that need to be brought back to both boards to vote on a different head count than what was previously presented?
so, approving the budget does the same thing in terms of if you approve dollars in the budget for that headcount. It was really. As we look from the one year to the other, it was a miscalculation of what was what was needed to be in the budget.
I guess I would, what I'm,
But if you're more comfortable with that,
well,
we vote, that
I
is
guess
fine.
I just would not. I don't want there to be confusion or a mischaracterization of what we voted on and
Yeah.
agreed to. And I prefer clarity, crystal clear, and it feels a little bit like my.
Yeah, I guess what would help me is I still don't understand, where was the SRO carried last year and the year before
It's always been in the budget,
in the police budget?
yes,
Okay,
and we get reimbursed.
okay,
So that,
So it's
that
still-
wasn't,
it's
the
still.
dollars wasn't the issue there. It was,
Yeah.
it was, again, going from the
counted.
new chart of filling shifts versus the old chart of filling shifts. And there was we dropped one person.
What was the
Sarah, may I
headcount?
ask a question?
Go ahead, Becky.
I just, could
Yeah, they're to chime in too, here to help out.
could somebody just tell me, please, sorry, what the dollar difference is?
It's what was
Specifically.
presented to us last week.
Right, I just, what we're talking about now.
So the net difference is about 125,000.
For salaries, it's 59,916.
Is this between what we voted on last time and now? We as a select board and you as the FinCom jointly?
The dollars haven't changed, correct, Greg? Because we were given the 240 number for new officers, and then I questioned that seemed high for 2 officers, and it turns out it's for 3 officers. That's the numbers we had last week, is that?
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that clear in my mind. Thank you.
Just, we didn't realize it was 3, not 2.
I'm still lost.
So-
Yeah,
Why it's an
How
addition.
how many new human beings are gonna be new employees? 2 or 3?
In total, 3.
Really?
So we're going from. So the police department will have a total head count of 15 patrol officers. Plus the lieutenant, plus the chief.
What do
That's
they
a
have
total of
now?
17. So. So this. And this is where it got confusing, because we added one already this year.
Right.
Because of the.
111.
Dispatch and 111F and filling.
Right,
So that's where it got confusing, because we had already added one and now we're adding 2 more. But from fiscal year to fiscal year, it really is adding 3. Because we had the 1 plus now the 2. In order to get to that 15. So we had the 12.
yeah. Plus the SRO makes 13.
No, the SRO included,
Is in
the SRO
now.
was in that 12.
12.
I think I got it. Can I take a stab?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I got it. So we allocated for a new police officer prior fiscal year or current fiscal year?
2023.
Fiscal 2023, but it didn't get filled,
It didn't get in the budget.
didn't get in the budget.
Ah.
How did it not?
Budget.
Because we didn't anticipate the problems with the reserve. So, but the chief was able to work his salary numbers with new hires and savings elsewhere. And he has enough money in this year's budget to hire that 13th person this year, though it wasn't fully loaded in the budget.
So it's not being hired in
Because
the current fiscal year,
it started,
even though-
it started in February, so it was,
Yeah, it was like
it was,
2 months ago. wasn't
right,
it?
so we're
Yeah,
6
yeah,
months,
got
we're
it.
7 months into the budget year.
Right.
It wasn't, but so it wasn't fully loaded in this current fiscal year.
Right, so he looked at his total budget, saw some excess, whatever,
Yes,
was able to bring full-time guy on for a partial amount of the current fiscal year.
yes,
So that kind of happened unbeknownst, I guess, like,
2 months
right?
ago.
No, but I'm just saying outside of the budget process,
correct,
right?
correct.
So now we are, okay, so that happened. Obviously, that person's full-time employed, they're staying on. Right?
That was the reserve officer that became full-time?
Correct.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with SRO.
No.
The only reason why I brought up the SRO is because
Nothing.
Andrew
That's
and I
all
were
right.
confused. Maybe I should have brought up, because Andrew and I were confused with SRO and part of the count versus not part of the count.
Okay.
Laser focused on that SRO.
That's all right.
Yeah,
I can see now that that is confusing things rather than helping. So,
The issue is we added a new officer midway through fiscal year 2023
correct,
that didn't show up in the budget stuff we did a year ago.
correct.
Now we're doing the next budget year.
Adding 2 more.
But what
So
happened,
that's a total of 3 from fiscal
See, I thought
23
this-
budget. to-
I thought that one was part of the
That-
two.
that-
What happened with
One's not,
the
on.
one we approved last year
I remember that.
for the 111F?
That's,
The reserve guys are gonna.
So
leave.
that's the one that didn't happen until a few
I don't
months
know.
ago, right?
I mean,
No,
No,
because it was
we're
in the
gonna-
budget.
now that I understand it, but I feel like it's a bit disingenuous to have us approve 2 new officers when really. Should have been.
It should have been 3.
Yeah, we should have been voting on 3.
And that was where the confusion, I mean, we're responsible for that confusion.
Could we have the answer to the 111F? I think there was a question here, maybe Sarah, you made?
Right, so in the 2023 budget, we voted to add a position in the police department for the 111F. Was that person ever hired?
In February.
And it was only like a half a salary because we were only paying half of the 111F salary.
But
I had that right.
we had 2/3.
Okay,
More than half,
whatever.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought we had added that position last year. And then I thought we were adding 2 this year and that the reserve officer moving to full-time was one of those 2 we were adding. That was my,
Yeah,
Let me get the sheet on.
okay.
so I'm confused that.
I
it wasn't
just,
in the
yeah, at a
budget.
very high level, we voted on 2, and really. we should've-
That was my
That's your
point.
Yeah.
Kathy.
And we're a small enough town. We could start naming names next year. We'll go through the process.
So he's on standby, so as soon as he gets this,
Okay.
he'll log in. And
Okay,
we can-
The 111F charges, we're gonna go to a different department, right?
no, they're paid out of the police department.
But weren't we gonna
We talked about it, but we did
Yes.
not, we decided in the end not to. do
not to
that.
do that? Okay. So that they're still in there. I'm wondering if we can't just combine the patrolman plus 2 patrolman line for 874, 468, which is the sum of the 2, and say it's for the two patrolmen this year and the one approved last year.
But I want to find out whether they hired one for last year or not. That's what I don't know.
Right.
But it may be that person was never hired, so that it's,
Because the budget for patrolman didn't go, only went up 9,000. And in the past, it's gone up a lot more, so. You know, maybe that 3rd person might be in why that
well,
number
they've
didn't
got
go up
the
this much.
240 edition. for
I
new
know,
officers.
it's
That's
there
the
now,
big- yeah,
yes.
So the 240 number was added for
Right,
to fully fund the 3.
Say that last thing again?
The 240 was added to fully fund the 3 positions in the FY 24 budget.
No, I get that now.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I don't like the fact that we voted on 2 and really it was 3.
Sounds like it was just a mix up.
So it may be helpful. I
Yeah.
don't know, I should get the-
You want to come back to this?
But I mean, I take your point though. Yeah.
It's almost like if we approve 2, one of the 2 should be the one that came on 7 months ago, plus
Right.
1 more ago. That would be 2, right?
But then his schedule doesn't work.
right, that's the problem.
Can we pay overtime?
And this should have been communicated much more clearly.
But, and I'm confused if we voted to add one last year, that it wouldn't have been budgeted.
Yeah.
It was,
Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was
Only
budgeted.
partially
So
budgeted?
let's get Todd on,
okay.
and then we can have the
I think it's
intelligent
even, I
conversation.
think it's even more confusing than that, because one of them, we might have voted budgeted for the 111F, but then there was this other one that he just kind of found the extra dollars in his.
But the one that we budgeted for was a replacement for 111F. So the 111F is sort of hanging out.
Right.
Yeah, but the numbers stayed at 12 active.
So we weren't counting the 111F in that.
Correct. So the one you added was a replacement in essence for the 111F on the active force.
But that's
So
the
we're
one,
still at 12.
that's the one we voted on, right?
Last year.
That's the one you voted on last year.
Yeah, that one's cool.
So that's what that was 12, including the SRO. So to get to 14 plus the SRO. That's 2. I've just blocked myself into the corner.
The only part
It's
that's
confusing.
dicey or whatever is the one that's been on now for 2 months. Is that how long?
Month.
And I think we talked about that a little bit. Because we were expecting to approve 2 in this budget. And we needed that reserve officer was leaving. And so being able to offer him a full-time position now,
If he didn't, the guy would have gone.
he could keep it, but I thought it was one of the 2 we were adding, not another position.
I mean, I guess a little bit of shame on us for looking at 240 and not being able to say 240 should be divided by 80.
That's what I did
which-
today, and I
which
thought,
divided by 80
wrong.
gets you to 3. I think we looked at that, we looked at the 240 and
Yeah.
said 2 new officers.
Right.
240, that's the fully loaded. Okay, that's about right. I think that's what we did, right?
Right, and I just looked at it today and said, oh, that doesn't, looks too high.
Right.
That was. Okay.
And I looked at it and thought I should be in a new career.
Because according to the notes I have, the net difference in police was 59,916, excluding benefits.
The net increase. Is that what you said?
It went from 1973999 till 2033915.
Is the career incentive line, is that something that's gone up dramatically? Can we get a concession on that maybe? Or is that something tied to something specific?
So that's union contract and then the third,
So it is tied in.
the next, so that they're going to 100% of what's called the Quinn bill.
So is that number that Sarah just said, I'm gonna round it to 60,000, if you'll let me.
Yes,
That 60,000 increase, that's kind of all the dust settles. Reduction overtime, new officers on, all kinds of moving and
but
shaking.
it doesn't
But
include the health insurance. or-
fair enough.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the net increase, plus 60 grand. For salaries.
Right.
For current officers, new officers.
We had
That was prior.
savings from dispatchers of 182,205. The new officers plus 240, and we had savings in reserve 108. 108,000, and then we had 9,500 in other savings. So the net difference from the first budget to the second one was 59,60,000.
60 grand.
So I think Todd is on. Are you there, Todd?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the car. I had to pull over.
So we're struggling a little bit with staffing numbers, Todd. And.
Yep.
You know, so that we're trying to reconcile from where we are today to where we need to be.
Okay,
So your goal is to have 15 patrol officers. That includes the SRO. And
That's
today
correct.
you have how many?
today we have, I'd have to look at it, but I think we have, well, we have people in the academy that we hired for a retirement and also the one that was approved this year. So we have 2 in the academy. So we would have, I think, 11 total.
Without the SRO,
Not, that's including, that's including the SRO, yeah.
Oh, that's even more confusing.
Yeah.
That's
You
even
thought,
more
what,
confusing.
Greg, what do you think the answer was gonna be?
I thought there was gonna be 12.
Yeah, I thought so
With
too.
with the new hire, it would be 12, and then we need the 3 more to get to 15.
But so it's 11 plus 2 in the academy? Is that what I heard?
No, but that includes the 2 in academy, unless I'd have to see it on my, my org chart, but I'm not in my office, so maybe I'm missing someone.
So if I put up that chart that you put up, that you made, are you able to see it on your phone? I can walk through the names.
No, well, I didn't go in, I'm in through the, I dialed in.
Dial in, yeah, okay, all right.
I can go to my office, I'm coming into town now if you want me to.
Now, we can do a few other things and have you come in if that's possible.
Yeah, I'll go to my office and zoom in, I'm just getting down off of 128.
Okay, we'll move on to other topics and come back to it.
We're in room 5.
All right.
It'll be helpful.
Okay,
The number is, we should just be using first or last one.
That wasn't very.
That's what I'm saying, so small enough. Also.
okay. So do we go to fire?
Oh, yeah.
So in the fire, you can see the new salaries, new expenses in the salary. We added the 2 firefighter paramedics, we reduced overtime from 140 down to 30.
Go to 30, I thought we did 120.
Right, that was what I explained in my memo, we added 10 back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry. And
So salaries went from 1.454 to 1.502. 125. And then expenses, we upped 13,000 roughly to cover some expense of assumed, both in the salaries and in expense, we assumed 3 all volunteer firefighters.
Oh.
right,
Oh, this is a word.
I mean,
to reinstate.
To
To reinstate.
call it, it's
Thank you.
stipend, like, just call it out exactly what, you know.
So it's stipend and then the turnout year
Yep.
and the physical that you have to pay for.
It's a stipend based on proposed DPW, right, becoming,
Or police.
or police
Or,
becoming.
or citizen.
What's the
So
stipend?
the fire,
Go ahead,
the fire budget went up by 69,000.
correct, that's what I'm just gonna say.
Sorry.
That's fine. So the net is 69,000 higher than originally proposed.
What's the stipend per,
We were,
per DPW or police?
yeah, we were projecting 5,000. For the stipend.
And we're adding 2 positions.
Right, so this would give 16 firefighter paramedics. So you'd have your 4 crews of 4. Gives you the 4 people on. Up to 60% of the time, depending on leave time use. Vacation, sick time, personal days. And so the remainder of the time you would drop down to 3. And that's how you're able to significantly save on your overtime budget.
Question. As part of planning the new overtime budget, did we figure in whether or not these 2 new hires would actually be, paramedics who wouldn't be trained until X number of months down the road, and therefore we're
So-
really covering stuff with overtime?
Right, so the 2 extra The two new really are providing your fourth person. So what it means is you're just gonna run 3 more often. You're not gonna hit the 60% with 4 on in the first year.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna.
Unless you happen to hire someone with both licenses ready to go.
What about coverage for 4th of July and Memorial Day? Is that covered by the overtime, or they can have enough people on shifts so they don't need overtime?
Right, so this July is not a fireworks year,
Okay.
so we don't have that
so
expense.
we- fire. Okay.
I know I'm on the losing side, but I'm just gonna make my point again. I just don't see, especially in the context of now I'm understanding we're hiring 3 new police officers when I thought it was 2. But, you know, I mean, we added a full-time firefighter prior year, we added a full-time firefighter the year before that. When I look at just dollars and cents, past 5 years, we've increased the fire budget at 4.8% per year over 5 years. You know, we've been told consistently hiring these new full-time floaters will reduce OT. That hasn't worked. These 2 new full-time firefighters we approved. You know, what was hired? Well, people were hired that hadn't gone through the academy, so it didn't even really help the situation, at least in the, you know, short term, right?
2 in, 2 out.
So I you know,
And neither will these hires, I don't think either. They probably will need to be trained also.
I thought that was the condition.
Question.
I thought that was the condition.
I thought we said we would prove this so long as they were firefighters.
I'd encourage you not to put that constraint, because it just really,
There's no benefit otherwise.
And
there is a benefit
A
because,
year down the road,
right, but like I say, these next 2 are sort of the gravy in terms of the fourth.
he's
So
next to a what?
they allow the 4th person. So if you don't have the 4th person, you just run with 3.
I'm lost. What, how does that impact hiring somebody who's already gone through the academy versus someone who hasn't? Someone who's gone through the academy can hit the ground running, they can cover staff and OT and right? Someone
I
that
understand.
hasn't, they have to go to the academy and obviously physically they're at the academy for I don't know how many months, but they're obviously not helping any coverage.
The goal certainly is to have that person
Mhm.
on board from day one. I just can't guarantee that we're gonna find that person.
But I understand no guarantees.
Sarah, if I may,
Yeah, hold on, wait a minute, Becky. I've got Ann who wants to speak, I've got John who wants to speak, and I'll call on you. Ann,
all right,
We will have 2 more at the beginning of this next fiscal year. We'll have 2 more fully qualified firefighters who will be able to make up shifts of 3. I believe the chief when he says that he can hire paramedics fairly easily. Then he can get them on a schedule to go to the academy and become fully qualified. The reason I think that is that there are 2 markets for paramedics, fire departments and ambulances. There's 1 market for firefighters, and that's firefighting. And furthermore, the paramedic school is more intense, longer, and people flunk out. So if you hire a paramedic, they've gone through the hard school, and you can get them into a schedule to become fully qualified. And probably it would take you longer to find somebody who had both qualifications than to hire a paramedic and train him.
that's fine, but my issue was the fact that we hired people who only qualified for paramedics, and then we used overtime to fill in the shifts because they weren't qualified to fight fires. That's my concern.
That is a different question.
Okay.
They filled shifts that weren't budgeted, that weren't authorized.
Okay.
That's a separate issue.
Okay.
These 2 new
Hold
that
on,
come
Mike,
on.
let me have other
Okay.
people talk, okay, John?
Yeah, so the chief was at our meeting on Monday and he said to find people that are both firefighter trained and paramedic trained will take forever, like maybe the 12th of never. It's very, very hard to find those guys. So you're out the money, whether you hire a paramedic and then send them off to school and you're losing all of that months of time. Or if you wait until you can find a guy, if they're out there, that has both training. So we're in a very difficult position, according to the chief, from that that perspective.
We never had problems with other chiefs, but that's okay. Becky?
Yeah.
Basically, I was going to say what they've said as well. And I think that if we somehow attach, rather than saying the chief has to hire fully qualified and trained firemen or women, that that we have if we do hire a paramedic and we train that person to be a firefighter, then they need to stay with us for a certain amount of time. I can see doing that, but I think to stipulate they already be trained, I think we're going to prevent ourselves from being able to hire. Thank you. Or make it greatly harder, significantly harder.
Mike?
So I got a couple points. So first one is these two firefighters that are gonna come out of the academy in July, is that what I heard?
Yeah.
I mean, these were the ones we approved 1 and 2 fiscal years ago, correct?
Correct.
So.
Well, no, two of them are replacing people who retired or left us.
And one of them is.
Last summer.
The 2 floaters are on board. Oh, no, one isn't because he left.
Correct. So one floater's fully on board.
I guess I'm just, on that point, it just seems like there's a big lag, like a very big lag between when we approved them and when they came on board and when they finished the academy, all that kind of stuff, but. Okay, maybe there's a lot of in and outs. You know. You just said a floater came on and then left,
No, one of the, yeah.
right? So here's where I'm going there. My concern is. And I don't know how much, control we have over this, but it just seems like we should be wanting or trying to poach, for lack of a better verb. A firefighter that, has 15, 20 years in some big city that doesn't want that anymore, right? Doesn't want to go charging into burning homes and, they're 40 years old and kind of want a slower pace and right? Because if we're getting the young guys in their 20s, we pick them up, we send them through the academy, they come here, they're bored, and then they leave and go to fight the fires in Lawrence and Lowell and Cambridge, and again, I don't know how much control we have over that, but just, that's what I'm talking about, hiring the right person,
Right, and we can certainly expand our recruitment efforts, for sure.
And then just my last point is just, twice in the past 2 fiscal years, we've been told hiring a floater was gonna reduce OT, and that didn't happen. I mean, and I know there's lots of reasons and injuries and sickness, but just,
Peter?
Seems that Becky said something that's pretty important that I wonder if we can actually do, which is require somebody to stay for a minimum period of time after we train them. Is that sounds like a union issue or.
So it is partly a union issue, and you can sign those agreements. It's very hard to enforce them.
Okay.
But we can,
So we should
that
not,
doesn't mean we can't try.
Yeah.
We can certainly,
I think that's part of what we're dealing with here is we lose people after we train them. But I gather we won't have a fully enforceable arrangement if we.
I mean, we haven't lost that many. We lost a few, but it hasn't been a steady stream of losses.
Didn't we lost 2 that were unexpected? Todd Biggers and someone else, correct?
We retired.
So the captain retired after 33 or 4 years, and the other lieutenant, he did want a larger department. He wanted more opportunity for advancement, and
How long have you been? with
Okay,
us?
hold on, come on, we need some decorum in this meeting. It's not back and forth. Are you through, Greg? Okay, Kathy.
Well, I think Maury had his hand up first.
Oh,
and then
sorry,
me, if that's
Maury.
okay.
Whatever. So it seems like we got a problem here where we're trying to hire people. They're essentially being paid for by the town, but they're not serving the town because they're in the academy for some period of time. Granted, the state pays for the academy, which is nice.
it's a 10-week academy.
And then they come back and then there's some question about whether they stay. And I wonder if what we should be doing for honesty or truthfulness in budgeting is kind of like the way we do with the snow budget, is we put in an amount that assumes when you hire, you're also paying some degree of coverage and overtime where they're not serving. And that essentially puts back to the department saying, this is your budget total for salary. And if you've got somebody in the academy and they leave halfway through or whatever, this is the amount of money you have to work with, and you have to adjust your staffing accordingly. Because where we've gotten ourselves to is we're maintaining a constant level of staffing. We're running the OT up through the roof, and we're still having the same discussion this year that we've been having for the last couple of years, which is we need to hire people and move them through the academy. So I'm trying to figure out, how do we do better budgeting on this? Push it back to the department head and say, this is what you have to work with. So.
Yeah, I like
And that was gonna be my. So if I may, continue on that thread. That old saying, you know, if you keep doing things the same, the definition of insanity is to keep doing things the same way and expect a different result, right? And so it would seem that there needs to be some sort of a process change here in terms of budgeting, so that we make sure our plan is as accurate as possible and also gives us early warning indicators if the trend starts going negative. So it feels, I don't know, it's more of a question really than a comment, but it feels like we're doing level run rate budgeting based on headcount, as opposed to saying, okay, if my budget gets approved, almost like an earned value approach, right? My budget's going to get approved for July 1, and even if I hire someone, they're really not going to start for 10 weeks. So my salary budget for the first 2 months of the fiscal year is going to be lower. Then it's going to bump up in the third month, because that's probably when I'll bring someone on board. So I'm asking, do we do run rate budgets, or do we actually try to anticipate what month the new hire will come on board and serve the town? So it is more of an earned value approach. And it gives you greater accuracy.
Okay, I don't want to
So-
get into this in too much detail.
I don't wanna
because
get into
we've
too
got a
much-
Budget to get through, and it's
Understand.
not a staffing discussion.
So,
Well, it's more
So-
budget.
so-
Is our overtime budget sufficient for the fire department to take those things into consideration?
30,000.
Right.
it is if there's not an injury. I can't, that's the wild card in public safety. When there's an injury and someone's out and you want to have that minimum staffing, that's where the problem arises. So when we had a person out for 6 months last year, that drove overtime. And so we can put a contingency if you want to put more money in case that happens, or you can use the reserve fund, or you can get a supplement at a town meeting. Those are but for public safety, you typically don't have the choice of reducing staff. That's the problem. So for this year, the problem is not as bad. We've rerun the numbers and projected salaries. So he has been able to save on his salary, his regular salary line, because of those new hires didn't come on board until October. So there were savings there for those first few months, and they come on at a lower rate. So the bottom line is his salary line will cover most of that OT overrun. So it's not as bad as we feared. So I sat down with him, and I sat down with number cruncher for him, and we just walked through it. Let's project ahead the salaries. Let's project ahead what we think we're going to spend, and there's a significant savings there, and that'll cover most of the overtime that has already been spent.
Is there a provision in there for somebody being injured or out for some period of time?
There is not. We have not done that as part of the operating budget.
Right, no, that's, you don't want to
So-
budget that, you want just.
So that's what we come to reserve for, or do a supplement. But in those two departments, fire and police, fire and police, that's the real challenge of, if you want it to maintain, for police, it's 2 officers on every shift. And you have somebody that you can rotate through, and if one person is out for multiple months. So we had an officer on paid leave for a long, almost a year.
So, why would you not want to budget for that kind of a contingency?
Well, we can. I mean, from the chiefs, both chiefs' perspective, they would love to have that. And if we don't use it, it falls back into fund balance.
And they could only use it if.
It's there, it's an incentive to use,
Right.
which we don't want.
Right, it would be targeted for unanticipated overtime based on,
You just get drawn as OT.
How do other communities deal with this? And I guess it's a follow-on question is there any sort of insurance that's offered to municipalities for this? Because I'm sure if this problem's happening in little old Manchester, it's probably happening in Boston and Chicago. And how do others
Yeah, but the difference in Boston and Chicago is,
critical mass?
right, their
Yeah.
total staff
So
is
so
hundreds
much-
of fires, so if one goes out for 6 months, it's not as, I would think,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's not as big a deal.
it's not, yeah, we're in a small town, each person is is so critical to that minimal staff.
So let me ask the question the other way. What happens to towns that have 5 employees on the police department? What do?
Yeah, they go without.
What was your last?
You run it. I was just reading, what town was it? I forget, but
They figure it out.
they went without, they just reduced the coverage. So they didn't run 2. But in this case, if you only have 5, you're only doing day and maybe evening shift only, and you're not covering the midnight, so they dropped their evening coverage and they only ran days. And they called in the state troop, state police to provide coverage. That's what towns do.
Okay, so what are we gonna do with the fire budget? And we can talk all night on it, but we need to make a decision. Are we gonna approve it? Yes, yes.
I was gonna say that, I think the floater approach was very inefficient and that drove the overtime up. To have a call and to call a guy in for a minimum 12-hour shift. I'm encouraged that the 16-man crew will be a lot more efficient than the floater. So I'm inclined to approve the 16-man crew. And I think the costs are covered in what we're saving in dispatch. And I think we should let the chief try to do with that system.
But we already use the savings in police, right?
I think we have enough.
Can I throw a friendly amendment onto Dean's comments?
Sure.
This has become a cycling issue for a number of years. I would recommend that the finance committee and the board of selectmen meet quarterly to review the progress of police and fire, to see where we are on budgets. Because we roll into budget season, which is typically January, and then we have this, oh my gosh, we've been running for 7 months. Yikes, where are we? This has been a pattern, and I feel like if we kick off the new budget on July 1, whatever the math is, September, we ought to be meeting, December, we ought to be meeting, and we ought to follow where this is going.
As soon as Andrea's issued her quarterly report, probably.
Yeah.
With the
That we
focus to
discussed
see how we're doing.
Exactly. Because this needs some oversight.
Especially since there's a narrative out there full of misinformation that somehow we're starving the fire department, when the reality is we've increased it 4.8% over 5 years. We've added 2 new full-time, which represents, what's 2 divided by 12, 17%, right? So there's this total misinformation out there.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the fire department budget in the amount of $1,676,007?
That includes the 2 new positions.
Correct.
Thank you. I just want to be sure. You have that motion.
Is that the correct number, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I move that.
Peter moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lori second. Any more discussion? Ready to vote? Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
No,
Mike, Tom,
yes,
Lori,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
So Todd is on the
Yes.
Zoom. I think if you could give Todd screen sharing ability. Todd, can you put up the staffing chart with all the boxes?
You should be able to screen share now.
Are you there, Todd? You're muted.
Sarah, can I?
You have to allow me to.
Yeah, you should have that ability now.
Just, it's an accuracy question. The number we just voted on, sorry, was 1.676075.
Yes.
Shouldn't it be 1.682325? Because if you add
I'm
1.502525 up above,
173,550.
173, but isn't there a 6250 there for emergency management?
No, that's, we're gonna vote for that separately.
That's a separate, yeah, that's a separate.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I probably will overlook this, so thank you.
So, Todd, could you start off and just go 1 through 14? Who is here now?
So Shoot, Seidel, Loof, Richard, Machine, Mullins is in the academy. Coe hasn't started yet. Newton's here, Clary's here, Johnson's here. Gilson is here, and Ramus is in the academy.
So that's 14,
So,
2 openings.
well, that's, so 12 altogether?
12, and then you see the float cover or the floater that we call, well, we haven't decided if that's gonna float or where it's gonna be, but we just put them in as the red box, the red and the gray box on the day shift and evening shift. Those are the 2 new positions.
So if you have you have 12, you just said 12 people. Hi.
Yeah.
2
Plus the,
The SRO is down below. See, we
that's
didn't include that.
13,
That's 13.
right? So we do just need 2 more.
Correct, correct.
So why did
So what?
Oh.
Andrew, can you help why the 240 number?
Because for FY '23, we added 1 to get to that total that we have right now, but that wasn't in the budget.
Okay, so I was correct when I said that.
Yes. So that's why the difference, that why we added that back, because we thought it was included, but it was not.
And we're still adding, if you, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is where the confusion is. We still have the person in the budget that's on 111F who will drop off in a year.
Yeah, well, I'm just keeping
Correct.
that separate right now. That's,
But these numbers he's giving us, does that include the reserve officer who became full-time?
Yes,
So that would make 3 new.
correct. Which was not, so again, I think what I said earlier was correct, that we have. You added 1 this year that wasn't budgeted. You took advantage of some.
yeah, we talked about that. Yep,
He started late in the year, so you were able to squeeze him in.
Yep.
But fiscal year to fiscal year, we're missing. We're short 3, so you needed to add 3. The full 3 salaries in your FY '24 budget.
that's what we talked about.
Question, Greg? If I may, just for my clarity, so I agree with everything you said. Excuse me, but if we took a reserve officer and changed his badge, so it's full-time, that reserve salary was not in this year's budget?
Oh, we've reduced reserves by 108,000.
So,
Okay, so if.
so the reserve money was there. That's part of how he was able to do
Okay.
this.
So, but as part of FY '24, we have lowered that, and so that's where the net.
So, yeah, the reserve number is dropped by 108,000.
So basically, it's not so much we're adding, so much as taking that gentleman's salary from the reserve line.
We're adding, I'm
and
sorry.
well, and moving it up to the full-time.
So,
It's an
So you're
additional,
reducing reserve and you're adding,
no, it's an additional full-time position.
it is an
All
additional.
there is to it.
No, I understand,
No,
but I
no,
just wanted to finish my comment if I could. That you are it's also, you're reducing the reserve because we're getting rid of that approach,
Right, so that's why I said the net,
the net.
the net effect, is 135,000 or so.
Understand, okay.
So the reason for adding that person right away is because we lost the dispatchers and and Greg and I had talked about it. We were having difficulty covering the 911 dispatch. So we had to bring someone on because I had no people to cover 911 until we make the transition.
So it is three, but you really gotta think about them separately, right? You gotta think about it 2 and 1.
Yeah,
Right? That's how you gotta think about it. There's two truly new, right? This one, it's a unique situation, right? Because they're already on board, they're already employed, right, working, but they weren't in the prior budget. It's almost like a retroactive approval, kind of, sort of, I guess.
Well,
on
we
this
we did vote to approve it last year, but. just-
This is separate.
no,
This
this
is
is
One, and
This
he
is separate.
hired
This
two.
is in addition to the one from last.
There's in addition to that.
All right.
Yeah. Well, this is the one.
This was because he was afraid he was gonna lose the reserve officer to go to another department, and he felt if he could offer him a full-time position, he could keep him. So I saw it as an advanced hire for the 2 new positions. That's how in my brain it was.
I see.
But really, it's an advanced hire for 3 new positions.
This is kind of a retroactive approval. Kind of, sort of.
It's a retroactive funding. for sure.
Well, the select board approved it. Because he had enough in his budget, and all we vote on is the budget,
Yeah, but
right? We don't vote on, we're not, we're not responsible for staffing, we're responsible for the budget. And he had sufficient money in the 2023 budget to make that change,
Okay, but take that road at the end of the fiscal year,
right? Then there's not the money,
so.
right?
Well, it's sort of like, the discussions we've had about paying for stuff, out of, using reserve money for something that's gonna come back next year as like a regularly budgeted item. If you don't include it in the tax rate, then you're gonna get
To
hit.
say it a different way, and this is total theoretical, I'm just saying, if we theoretically said no more police officers for the next budget year, he'd actually have to let one go,
Right,
right?
yes,
I'm just, that's how I wrap my head around.
right, and in your overtime budget, we go through the roof.
I know, I'm.
But no, I understand. Yeah.
I'm just saying that, so
No, yes,
it adds clarity to,
it does add clarity, yes.
You know what I mean?
I understand why you say that, yes.
and if we said, we're approving one new officer, then it's almost like there's nothing to do operationally, right?
Operationally,
Because
correct,
He's already there.
it's already there.
he's already there.
so are we ready to vote on this police budget?
I think so, now that we've gotten here, I think so.
It's a total increase for those 3 new people of $60,000, so. So do I have a motion to approve the police department salaries and expenses in the amount of $3,039,115?
So moved.
Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Murray seconds.
Could you repeat the number, please?
2,033,915.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
You can close that. Yeah, thanks.
It's 250. It was expensive and the the red. Oh, red
The
system.
code red, yes.
Do I have a motion to approve 6,250 for emergency management?
I'll move that.
Andy moves. Do I have a second? Mike seconds. Any discussion? Take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Here. Police, fire. Debt, we have to do debt, right?
Yeah, I think that,
And then capital.
and then capital.
Do we do elections and registration?
Yes, we did that, yes, last week. Elections, parking, building, and planning. And all the parks and rec, and library and public health. And so on. Okay, debt is going to pay. 196. Yeah, that's on this cheat sheet. It's.
Greg, is most of this for capital? The origin of this debt go back to capital for the most
Yes.
part. And the water treatment. plant.
There was a total of 800, it's right there. 895,078, and it's maturing principal, long-term interest and WPAT administration fee. And it matured in, are we almost at the end of it, right?
So there's you can see the list on 196.
193.
It's not a big deal, but look, the number sounds a little different than what he said. You said 895?
No, that's what this is saying, it's different,
That was 893, 470.
right?
And there's a couple $1,000 difference there.
Yeah, I'm taking a look right now. Might have checked it.
It's the WPA administration fee. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's that sewer administration fee.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah, 893, 471 is maturing principal and long-term debt,
Yeah, okay. All right.
or interest, I mean.
So yeah, it's,
So we have to go for the 895,078.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the last bonds taken out were in 2018.
Yes,
Those were town bonds.
correct.
What was that for?
We used to always fund our capital bonds.
And do you remember what that was for? What projects?
water system improvements, sewer improvements, mainly enterprise related items.
So most of these go to 2033. And one goes to 2036.
Right.
Yeah, we'll basically be debt free by 33, assuming you don't add new debt. One small one left.
So I have a motion to approve the debt service in the amount of 895,078.
I'll
Mike
second.
moves, Andy seconds. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
So this number has dropped about $1 million over the last 8-9 years.
That's good.
And that's how we've been able to plow some more money into capital.
Right, right.
Okay, so
Do you know what it drops to the following year?
So it drops in the range of 70,000 or so each year, but then there's some bigger steps.
Mhm.
We can give you that schedule.
No, just 70 grand. one.
yeah, everything checked off, isn't it?
Looks
So
like a
this
big
is
step
the-
from
this is
26,
capital.
fiscal 26, 27.
What are you saying, Maureen?
I was gonna say, it looks like a pretty good step drop in about 26 or 27. But maybe I'm
Yes.
reading this incorrectly.
Okay, capital. Now, my records regarding what we voted for is slightly different than what's on this sheet. We
Okay.
Received today. I have that we approved public safety. Yeah. And we approved partner. 129. We approved Parks and Rec on 216, yeah. And approved library on 216. So I guess it's just the hard words. So first up is DPW. In the amount of $1,075,000. We don't have to vote for the chapter 90. $1,075,000.
I'm wondering if, big picture with, the school increase and the excess levy capacity, I would like to try to be able to say in the budget that we hold a 2.5% increase, assuming a 3.5% school typical, and that the extra school is what we use for the excess levy capacity. And I would like to try to hold down any additional excess levy capacity expenditure if we could, just keeping it for the school and the fields. And I think one way to do this, right now, we're at 4 million or 4.8, and we've always said that anything over 3, the town starts to overheat. So I'm wondering, I think this is the area where we can look to try to reduce the budget and keep the excess levy capacity down.
I can agree with that. Basically, you're saying slow the brakes, lift your foot off the gas on the CapEx a little bit.
A little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
we've always said 3 million is a good year. All of a sudden, we're at 4.8.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing, Greg, is, am I correct that there's an additional 400,000 being spent on DPW from ARPA that's not included in this?
That would be the maximum. I'm not sure we're gonna make that number, but yes, there is some additional ARPA money.
So we're spending 5.2 million. If you add ARPA in.
No, that's part of the 4.8.
Oh, it is,
Wait a
because
minute.
I don't see it
No,
listed.
I'm wrong. You're right.
Yeah, so we're really spending 5.2 million on capital, if you include the ARPA.
So to go Dean's way,
So the big change is that water pipe replacement at 2.2. That's what's the unusual number this year.
On Pleasant Street.
Um,
Is that just Pleasant Street or is there other?
But yeah, it's primarily Pleasant.
But we're not doing replacements because they can't get the pipe, right? Were they gonna reline it?
Yes, I didn't hear the results of the testing, but that was the hope, yeah.
Right.
but to Dean's point, if you had to pick something,
We want to move from
What
4.8 to 3.
what number are you looking to get to?
you know. it
I
doesn't need
understand,
to go
but
all
I'm trying to
way
get the
3,
sense of magnitude, that's all.
3.5.
Well, wait a minute, let's go back to this number. We gave us,
I mean, I guess I would start first by looking at your total, right? So if you,
Total what? Total.
so the
CapEx?
2.5 tax increase
Mhm.
is funding everything except for the school extra.
Right, that's what I'm trying to.
The only reason why we're doing beyond
Right,
is to fund the school correction. if I can
okay,
use that
that's
word.
what I would love to be able to say in the letter to the town with the.
Well, you can, that's where you're at now, even with this high number. I mean, this number is being funded in part because of a large use of fund balance. We're using 1.7. We're using 1.7 million in fund balance to do more capital in this proposed year. So you're not
Actually, yes, so
you're
you're
not taxing people extra
Yeah.
hard to do this extra capital.
Yeah, I'll take the flip side of that argument. I mean, I get that we're still within the levy capacity. But from a, budget, from a person budgeting their household expenses, they're gonna see, a 4% increase.
Right, and what's
So-
driving that 4% is the school.
Well, it's everything together. You can't just pin it all on the schools, right? It's the schools, it's the police, it's the fire, it's the DPW, it's the CapEx, it's everything together.
But isn't it to the point of what Dean was saying, sounds like we are in the situation of doing what he suggested. Not to say that, you couldn't amend it, but the idea that Dean had was 2.5 to cover everything that we're doing, and then we use the excess levy capacity just to fund the incremental additional for the school.
So,
Right.
so this summary is saying we're using 457,730 of excess levy capacity.
Correct.
And the increase in the school budget is 909,000.
Correct.
And our percentage is roughly 60%
What do you mean?
of the school budget for the town.
Well, it's doesn't matter what the percentage is, the increase to us is 5.72%, I think.
That's right.
Yes.
But the dollar number, it's not 900. I thought it was
Yes,
like,
our increased dollar amount is 909. 909,851. Rounded to 910,000. That's on the operating budget. It's 5.72%.
okay, so I think the
It's our
dollar,
assessment.
the dollar number I'm thinking is, because we always assume a 3.5% increase. So then if you take that 900 grand into two pieces,
Yeah.
right? The 3.5% increase is probably,
There's an additional 2.2% than normal. It's 5.72.
understood. Now I'm just breaking that into dollars.
About
You said,
2.2%.
like, take the 900 grand in two pieces in dollars, right? It's probably, I don't know, 500 and 400,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in other words, out of that 900, 500 we should have expected, because every year we expect 3.5%.
Correct.
The 400 is the extra part.
Okay.
If you're expecting 3.5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we did,
Last year, we didn't have 3.5.
right, we were below 3 last
We were 2 something.
Okay, fair enough.
But just
I'm
go
I'm
by,
just
No, I
saying,
understand what
our
you're saying.
bogey is 3.5. I get some years it's below, some years it's above.
Well, the school aims for 3.5, and the way the apportionment works out is we're less,
Right.
and Essex tends to be more. So 3.5 is the dialogue coming out of the district. What we end up with as a bill here is apportioned down, typically below that, and Essex
Well,
is
3%.
apportioned
by
up.
the way.
Yeah, for now. The shoe was on the other foot a few years back, but yes, the trend certainly is in that direction for now.
Well, so I think my idea is slightly different than Dean's, maybe. I think, I prefer to hold the 2.5, and the flex has to be down on the CapEx. So sounds like that would be 400 grand, roughly.
No,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
if you're using that 3.5 figure, yes.
What I'm saying is, let me ask it this way. If we drop the CapEx by 400 grand from, I don't know, 4.8 to 4.4 or 5.2 to 4.8, I don't, right? But if we dropped it 400 grand, would a 2.5% increase cover everything or no?
So right now I'm showing 1.9 in taxation funding the capital. So in order to achieve what you want to do, you have to cut that 1.9 to 1.5.
But then we're not using any of the excess levy capacity to pay for the school.
Correct.
Well, we're
That
not
doesn't make
using,
sense to me.
well, we're not using any excess levy capacity, is what I'm suggesting.
Right, you want to keep it at 2.5.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so the issue is that then we're essentially using reserves to cover an operating expense that's gonna hit us next year.
look,
No, not really.
yeah,
No, because, I mean, I'm like,
we had this
if I
discussion
reduce
this
my
afternoon.
capital expenses
Okay.
by 400,000, and I'm taking it from taxation.
Okay,
But my concern is now, instead of, I've been trying to grow the amount of general taxation into capital a little bit every year. It's as steady as it goes. It's been an incremental process. We started, when I first came here,
I
we had
remember.
very little taxation going into capital. One of the things that we've been able to accomplish is to grow that capital where it needs to be. So to me, it feels like a step backwards. You now,
We're talking about 400 grand in the context of $5 million. I mean, that's, you know.
well, but so instead of next year being at 2.1, I'm gonna be at 1.7.
So why don't we
What's-
take the
sorry,
design,
We're
of
trying to
the-
grow at 200,000 every
why
year.
don't we take the design of the DPW facility out of the CapEx budget? We don't even have a facilities report. We don't know where it's gonna be,
That can wait a year. I
would-
What's the dollars?
350.
Or we could reduce it to get something.
I would-
started.
That's almost the number.
we understand.
And to Dean's point, I mean, you know, I've been on this committee for a while and it's always been $3 million. You know, 3 million has been kind of, that's the good number, because if you spend more than that, you actually upset the town because you're doing too many roads or too many pipes at once. And I take your point, there's inflation and blah, blah. But 3 million to 5 million, that's, you know, what's that, 40% more? I mean, that's, you know, that's not like 3 to 3.5,
We
3
were
to
3.5
3.7.
last year. 3.5 last.
Okay, but 3 to 5.2 or 4.8, that's, you know.
5.2 with our, yeah, I mean, that's still money. Not taxable.
I mean, high level, we're still making a good dent in infrastructure. And to be honest, if we use, what is it, 350, you know, so that doesn't impact the work on pipes and roads and, you know.
that 350 for the DPW facility, is that design fee? What is
Yeah,
that?
design.
Okay, so that presumes going forward with a particular location. and-
So the hope was that we would make that decision in the fall and that we could get started on design.
Yeah.
That was the
So-
projection.
Question, so then, would the push out maybe be 6 months, not a whole year, because, you know, your next fiscal year would start the following July, right? So he could still get the facilities master plan underway.
Yes, that's
And-
underway now.
If we weren't gonna start the design until later on in the fiscal year anyway, you're really only pushing it out
Correct.
4 or 5 months, not a whole year.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you gotta get your facilities plan and then you gotta make determination as to the order in which you're gonna do things and where stuff is gonna be located. And I don't think we're close to that. I mean, they're looking at the old compost site, but nobody has looked at everything to say, yeah, that's where DPW should go. To the best of my knowledge.
As long as we don't make any cuts that interfere with creating that facilities master plan. That would be my
That's what we
personal
paid
thing.
for.
Right, so that's,
And that plan relies upon this design work?
No,
no, it doesn't.
This design work follows them.
Okay,
Study that's already appropriated.
sorry.
It's a study that's already happening.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on what you were saying, to be sure. Are there other elements in the lineup for capital that are candidates for deferral? As plainly as I sense this one is, that is the DPW design? I mean, if we don't keep the pipes going and the roads going, I'd be resistant to that because I live on a road that keeps having water turned off. But I don't know if there are other things on there that, I mean, I think we need to do the roof at the Chatter House and, you know, all these other
I mean,
things.
so just one general comment
And this
is,
is a
I
quick-
think if you look at what the taxpayers are gonna be seeing over the next 5 to 6, 7 years. Essex Elementary is gonna be rumbling along at some point. And if Essex Elementary rumbles along before DPW happens, it's a pretty tough pitch to say we want to do a school and a DPW facility. I don't know, my mind just foggily says, what if we got the DPW thing done earlier rather than later?
I just don't think we're in a position to, we haven't made any decisions yet. I don't see how we're in a position to fund something we don't even know what.
Yeah, I'm just saying I would just be cautious about delaying a town's interest in a DPW thing.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, but
I'm not saying we put the money there and we lose it, or it rolls downhill, but.
I think even though the school district is putting in a, you know, a statement of interest for state funding. I'm not sure they're gonna get the same thing that happened to Memorial. You
They may
know,
not.
it's in better shape than Memorial was. Even if it's,
We can't say yes to everything, right? Like, we're allocating limited funds, and this is 350 grand just for plans, just for like design. On something that, I mean, I don't know. If someone asked me to explain the difference why taxes went up 4% versus 2.5%, and I said, oh, it's because we spent 350 grand on a design for like.
I mean, my problem is, I think if we're doing a facility study, we need to be able to see the study and then prioritize the projects. And I don't think we prioritize is just DPW's raising their hand and saying, we want to be first.
When is this report due? So
Summer.
At the end of the summer.
So you could have a fall town meeting and if really wanted to move it along and have a special.
But the fact that we can't fit all of the fire equipment in the fire station with that Linfield engine leads me to believe we're
Right.
gonna be looking for a new fire station.
rather,
And
It's-
How dependent is the design on the location?
Well, to get to a full design, absolutely you need the location. I mean, they've done a very preliminary design with numbers and they can fit on either side. So we know the current side or the outpost side. So the next phase is you want to know where, you want to know what part. they'll
There's
put
some,
out.
there's some preliminary design done
Yes,
and. Okay, so I'm lining up with Kathy. If we get the facilities plan and
Right.
take this up, if we want to go ahead, we can do another appropriate, we can talk about it.
oh, hold on just a moment. Nate DeRoche is raising his hand. Nate?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so we have completed a siting analysis for the DPW facility, basically looking at rebuilding on the existing site or moving it to, as discussed, the compost. You know, those locations were basically chosen based off of the previous study that was never really finalized. That was done in like 2016, 17, I believe it was, that really kind of looked at some of the, you know, facility needs town-wide and the available land options that we had. So that's how we kind of got to that point with looking at the two specific sites. And as Greg mentioned, we are underway on the facilities master plan where we're going to look kind of wholesale at, you know, all the various sites in town. What are the existing facility needs? Like you said, you know, fire department, you know, obviously has issues, PD has issues. So it's, you know, it's a bigger kind of holistic look at it. You know, with that said, I think our plan was to have that wrapped up by the end of the summer, and then we could roll into a, you know, a design for a DPW facility, you know, starting in the fall. And that was, you know, projecting how long that design would take, you know, rolls into kind of basically a 2-year cycle after that for construction.
Thank you, Nate.
I really strongly agree with Sarah, spending large amounts of money without a strategy and a prioritized list of things you want to do is really unwise. And if we're really just talking about a few months delay in the design of the DPW facility. I think that's prudent, because while we think right now that may be the next thing we have to do when they finish that master plan and we talk through the strategy and what our priorities are, we might find that another facility is actually more important for some other reason. We don't know until we get that plan. So I really like Sarah's suggestion. I think it's very prudent.
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead, Mike.
Do we take out the 350,000 design fee for the DPW?
I'll second that.
Vote, Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Maura?
Yep.
Sarah votes yes. So we're taking out the 350. Which brings DPW down to 725. Plus the 400 in ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, do you want to take a vote on the capital for the Department of Public Works in the amount of, maybe we want a motion for 725,000?
So moved.
Peter moves, do I have a second? Mike seconds. Vote, Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Next is land use management. 37,500 to match a grant to do a downtown strategic plan. And what's the purpose of this plan?
So this is a combination with the whole MBTA zoning. 3A,
Oh, yeah.
so this would provide funding for analysis. And
Is this a parking focus? What's the focus of this analysis?
the focus of the analysis is what sort of what growth do we want to have take place in the village core? And help us to understand if we want to comply with the new 3A zoning or not.
I see, that's what the
And
30.
where's the grant coming from? Is it the State Department that's pushing this housing?
So there's a number of different sources. MAPC has some technical assistance grants that they have. Housing Choice Program has funding. The Mass Housing Partnership offers assistance and grants. So there's 3 or 4 different funding possibilities for grants.
I'm a little leery about using those state agencies for a grant because of what we experienced in the 40B. That the consultant we hired could only help us if we were going to say yes. The moment we started to say, no, maybe we're gonna deny it or file for a safe harbor, he couldn't be involved, and I just am concerned about these other agencies being the same, as we're only gonna really help you if you're gonna say yes. And we're not there yet. But maybe I'm wrong.
But I think so. My understanding is that some of the grants allow us to choose the consultant. So it's not the state staff or the MAPC staff, if you're concerned about that. So I think we have the ability to pick and choose.
That's what we had with the 40B.
Well, but those are pre-selected.
So, yeah.
So you got to choose from a limited set of options.
Who picks this? Who picks the component?
It'll be the task force, the planning board.
Planning board. So we're voting on this, even though the funding for it really is gonna be 100% a grant?
No, 50% grant.
It's an assumption, you know, that it's all the grant require a match. It may not be as much as this, but Sometimes the 20% matches, it just depends.
And I mean, high level, this is something we have to do or not?
Yeah, exactly. Can we wait? I mean, when you get the grant, can't this come back? I mean, something, I'm missing something here. Something gonna happen? When we put a thought.
This is anticipation.
It's anticipation.
The task force has been created.
But the grant hasn't been decided.
We haven't been awarded a grant. We've sent in some letters of interest and we're
Got it.
in that process.
The determination regarding the 3A needs to be completed by December of 2024.
I see. So there's the push. There's the push.
Yes.
December of 2024.
And to be
Halfway
compliant,
through the next fiscal, but you have to do all your zoning changes. If you're gonna do any by that December, or you need a little lead time based on how quick we are at zoning changes.
And with the grant kind of enable that kind of compliance,
Yes.
it
You
would.
don't have to.
No,
Does I mean, you understand this much better than me, but if you don't, you risk
money.
money, but we don't get much money.
Well, except
Um,
South England's applying. for-
Historically, we haven't received a ton of money. Recently, we've done better and the board approved submitting a letter of interest for a MassWorks grant, which could be a couple, 3 million. And the Housing Authority has not been successful recently in getting capital improvements. They desperately need them, and they would be shut off.
Sorry, I heard 3 million in my ears perked up. What's 3 million?
For utilities to service the LCD, the limited commercial district.
I mean, that's about the only number I've heard that gets my ears tingling, because the other numbers are like 20 grand, 40 grand, 200 grand.
I understand.
They're nothing. That one's obviously,
I think we should go forward on this. Do you
Okay.
want to vote on this independent of everything else? You want to go down
I
the
want
list?
to go each section separate, so let's take a vote on this.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve 37,500 for land use management?
You do.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Andy seconds. Take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy, Dean,
no,
Mike,
yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. And one other list. Okay, town hall,
Those guys.
88,000. Is that correct or?
No, it's 58.
96.
Isn't it 58?
No,
On the spreadsheet.
96, but
Oh,
CPC is
88.
paying.
Oh, sorry.
8,
Got it.
So we vote on 88.
Got
For.
Yep.
Computer upgrade, Seaside One HVAC and Water Task Force.
What was the water?
Can you tell us what
Water task?
30,000 is for the task force?
So the Water Task Force, Water Resources Task Force was created
Mhm.
a year ago.
Yep.
They've been working on analyzing our water resources, how to better protect them, projections for future, looking at our rates, our tiered rates, how better to conserve water supplies. So these dollars are aimed specifically at putting together a new rate structure and educating people for water conservation efforts. Primary purpose of
I see.
these dollars.
Do I have a motion to approve 88,000 for town hall capital items?
So
Andy moves, do I have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds. Vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
yes.
Dean,
yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Next is Historic District Commission. $15,000.
So these are funds to conduct basically an inventory of historic buildings in preparation for potentially putting some of those structures on the historic preservation list. and enables property owners then to qualify for various either tax credits or other opportunities to help with their preservation.
I'll say this one's a little near and dear to me because I owned a house that dated back to 1684. I sold it. It had 5 chimneys and 10 fireplaces and 4 beehive ovens, and the new owners took down one of the fireplaces with the 2 most beautiful beehive ovens in. So,
So can I just ask a question? I'm not taking a contrary position. I recall several years ago when a tree branch, or we had water damage in the children's room of the library. And we couldn't work or fix that because it was in a historic area. And so we ended up waiting and waiting and waiting and spending a fair amount of money. And so I believe in historic preservation, but from a point of view of like capital and operational efficiency, are we creating more hurdles to get things done? for the
I
town?
think this was for residences, not.
Is it just
municipal
for
buildings.
residents?
This is for residents, and it would be
So it benefits
voluntary.
taxpayers and doesn't hinder the town.
Taxpayers would have to apply for it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So it would be their choice whether or not to actually go forward
Perfect.
with the registration.
Do I have a motion to approve 15,000 in capital for historic district commission?
So,
Andy moves, do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
Dean seconds. Vote, Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Town clerk. Voting tabulators and booths, $10,000.
Placing.
Is this?
Yeah, it's replacing, it's upgrading.
It's
Yeah.
not clickers, right?
No.
Oh.
It's the machines you put your ballot in for them to count, I think.
Okay.
Right, it's the actual booths themselves and the tabulators that count the ballots.
Do I have a motion? To approve $10,000 in capital for the town clerk?
Yes, you do.
Peter moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Maureen seconds. Vote, Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
Sarah says yes. Library, we already approved. Council on Aging. Van replacement. 25,000 as a match for a grant.
We have the grant.
If we don't have it in hand, it's very close. I think
Very
it's-
close.
It's certainly been applied for. We have received it in the past.
Hmm. Okay.
So we're pretty confident that it's coming through. So this is this is a cycle of
And
replacing.
what would the grant amount be? Would that change the number here? If we grant came through, I don't know, for a certain amount, would that change the 25,000 requested?
So the grant requires, I think it's a 20% match.
I see.
This is the 20%
And you've
match.
done the mathematics and it comes,
Yes.
yeah.
The 25 grand is 20%.
I believe so, yes.
How many vans?
One,
The mini buses.
it holds what, 12 or 15 people?
Hmm.
So what? Am I doing that right? Multiplied by 5?
60,000.
Or is it 20%, right?
Yeah, so each one is 65,000 or so, each van.
So this is more than 20%,
Yeah.
Yeah.
25.
25 grand would be, 25 grand is 20% of 125.
Right, 2 vans.
Oh, two.
I didn't hear
We're
that.
replacing both
Yeah.
vans.
We have three.
I know, we got 3, but
Two.
So 60 grand a pop, 120.
There you go.
How many years do the vans last?
Yeah, they look pretty good. I parked next to one of them.
We have-
They're taking up all the parking spaces.
They're like 5-year life.
That's super long.
Do we trade in the old one?
Yeah,
My car.
trade 'em in.
So we get something back there.
Yes.
In free cash.
If we trade them that often, are we better leasing them? New. 5-year life, that's not long.
The leasing companies.
I think it.
We buy new.
I think it's longer than 5 because
I
we
think
haven't
so,
replaced anything since COVID.
Correct. These are
That's 3 years, you
Right.
know.
I thought it was a year or two before COVID that they came. Or I can get you more information.
Do we buy them new or do we buy?
We have one. Yeah.
What's what the mileage is on it?
Yeah, I mean, they miles add up. Just the
More than
different-
20,000 a year?
What's that?
Every day.
More than 20,000 miles per year?
Oh, yeah, they're sometimes 6 days a week. Good. They pick trips into Boston. It's just not just running.
Yeah, well,
around
that's what I
town.
pictured in here.
Yeah, no, they're running to different places, they're doing field trips there.
And is there the need this year to replace two as opposed to like doing one a year or so?
I think the the funders like to see a package deal.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I think we're in line for electric ones.
Oh, that would be really good.
They're giving us 80%.
Okay.
That's hard to.
Do I have a motion to approve 25,000 to match on a grant for replacing two council on aging vans?
I'll make them.
Mike moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Maybe a second. Vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Sarah says yes. Parks and Rec we did. Harbor we did. Let's do water and sewer and then go back up to public safety.
Sarah, I have notes that you guys voted on that public safety capital on February 9th.
I thought we had, but
Yeah, I thought we had two. Yes.
You're right, we did. But there's no fire apparatus in it, so we'll circle back around on that. You're right. Water department. To the tune of $2,075,000 plus 400 million in ARPA funds.
I would say up to 400.
Up to 400.
Yeah, may not be the full 400. But you're not voting on that.
Right,
So 2 million, this is water pipes, sewer.
mostly water pipe
Okay.
replacement and then
Just water.
a little bit of plant upgrades.
Correct.
200,000 is plant upgrades.
1.9 million.
And that's one project, the Pleasant Street project.
What was
So there was a desire to get that done prior to the Central Street Bridge project.
Right, because of
Because-
traffic.
Because there's gonna be a lot more traffic on Pleasant Street.
I'd be inclined to want to resurface the road after the detour. You know,
No, but if you live down that on it, you're gonna want it done beforehand so that you're not hearing banging trucks all day long.
So,
Yes.
it did. Last time we talked about this, there was gonna be an assessment of the piping.
Yes,
Was that done?
it was done, and I'm sorry, I don't have that. Is Nate still with us? Yes, he is.
Nate?
Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't gotten us the results of that scoping yet. It was not as
Okay.
resultive as they claimed it to be. So basically, we tried to go in through the hydrants so we wouldn't have to do an open cut and expose and do a shutdown on that water main. But that because that's a 16-inch water main that really serves the rest of the town. So that's really why it's kind of the cost is quite high on that one because it is a 16-inch main, and we'd be doing the same process that we did on School Street with the lining, cleaning it and then cement lining it.
So we're feeling like we know enough that lining is the solution.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Based on the work we've done on that pipe in previous years to other breaks, it is pretty sound material being, the older cast iron, is generally pretty thick and we find it to be in good shape. It's just the tuberculation inside that, pretty much just clogs the arteries, so to speak.
So now, Andy, say that in layman's terms.
So the piping is in good enough shape to
Yeah.
scrub it out and then.
Versus replace.
And then line it.
It's not original piping. I know it was replaced at one point, like eighties or nine.
So
At some point it was replaced.
A good cleaning.
Yeah.
Is good enough. We don't need to fully replace.
Cleaning and then lining,
And then
yeah, which is
reline,
what they did on
put a
school.
new liner.
And this is for which street or streets?
Pleasant.
Pleasant. And
Half
that's,
mile street, half mile.
is that like a cost savings of 50% or more versus replacing?
It's a good question. I'm not, it's definitely. There's a
It-
substantial savings, I'm imagining, Nate, for lining versus replacement.
It's definitely a savings. I can't remember that off the top of my head what we had for an estimate on a replacement. But with the kind of availability of ductile iron pipe, it being in good condition and, you know, being able to have that option to line it, I think it makes the most sense to do that instead of doing a replacement project.
Was the school street budget similar or?
That was only about 1.2, I believe. But it's a smaller diameter pipe. So the cost does tend to kind of go up as you increase in size. It's just, you know, more cleaning, more lining. It's just a little bit harder to get it all done. You know,
The
as the pipe
diameter
gets
of the
bigger.
pipe- The diameter of the pipe impacts the cost more than the actual like
Mm-hmm.
length.
It's it's not a one-for-one thing, I don't think, but it's.
Correct, yeah.
Oh,
What is the life of a lined pipe? And if we have to go back in 10 years and do it again, can you just reline it on top of a lining or
No, you would.
you'd replace it?
I mean,
Yeah, it's a 50-year life on a cement line pipe, and the cement lining doesn't allow the minerals to stick to it going forward. So that's the big advantage, that our hydrant flushing will take care of any of the, you know, minerals that do, you know, precipitate out. So in general, we'll have a much cleaner pipe going forward, and we won't have the restrictions that we see in the pipes, you know, that we pull out of the ground today. So it improves, you know, the flow, it improves the pressure, it improves the water quality, you know, and all those down, you know, for that specific pipe and then downstream as well.
Great, thanks.
Now what's this additional 475 funding? Where's that coming from?
That's from the for the water
Water enterprise?
enterprise fund,
Okay,
yes.
so we need to approve the 207.
The 207.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve 2,075,000 for the water department for pipe and plant?
So moved.
Lori moves. Andy seconds. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
and Sarah says yes.
This is just a high level question, probably to Nate, I guess, but like. Just where are we time wise on all of these capital, are we,
The piping.
yeah, like, I mean, I know we're never on, like, no construction project is on time, right, but like, are we? Relatively on time or? Do we got supply chain issues? I mean, I know you got all these different moving pieces, I'm just.
So just talking overall.
Yeah, it's-
Projects.
In other words, do we have some on the table for in the 2023 budget, and where do we stand on those?
Right, like, have we approved stuff a year ago and we haven't even, you know, put a shovel in the ground or something? Yeah.
Yeah, so we completed the school street project was the last, you know, one. So we got that done in time. And so the plan would be to go out to bid with the Pleasant Street project if it's approved for construction this summer into fall. So that's done ahead of, you know, the Central Street Culvert project, as Greg mentioned. You know, in general, you know, we're moving, you know, kind of all of our projects, you know, between, you know, just DPW, Parks and Rec, Harbor, you know, everything's moving forward in some stages. You know, most of it's in design. Permitting is a very big issue right now that is just taking extremely long once it gets to the state level and you're waiting on those. So that seems to be the biggest delay right now in a lot of our projects.
Permitting for what specific, like Pleasant Street, is that a big permitting issue? I wouldn't think.
No. So for like the water main, that's not, I mean, that should be a pretty easy design to put together and get it out on the street. You know, we basically already have the, you know, what we did for School Street. So that will get out onto the street, you know, this spring, bid construction this summer. But like the other projects that involve like the harbor, you know, where we need Chapter 91 licenses, or even the Central Street Culvert project, you know, we're working on year 4 of permitting. So any projects that we're having to go to like the state level to get permits is tending to be very slow right now.
Year 4 permitting for the Central Street.
Culvert.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Oh,
So even if we had all the money in hand,
couldn't go.
we still can't,
We're probably a year away from this fall,
just from a permitting perspective.
just getting everything, yes.
Well, capital for the sewer department, 300,000 for plant upgrades. It's all being paid out of the sewer enterprise fund. Do I have a motion to approve 300,000? For the sewer plant upgrades?
So moved.
Maury moves, do I have a second?
Second.
Andy seconds. Take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Maury.
Yes.
There is a yes. I believe that's it. Now, there's no fire apparatus in this capital budget.
Correct. So, I think we would benefit from a little bit more time on options for the latter. Including getting a waiver on the emissions issue. So that's being pursued. And hearing back from the motor manufacturer in terms of what would they recommend in terms of compliance. There's been some very preliminary discussions, the potential of sharing a ladder with the neighboring community. I think that's worth pursuing further as well. So the budget includes an additional contribution to the apparatus fund. With the monies coming back that was allocated for the ambulance. Since we're not going forward with that, there'll be about 1.3 million in the fund. So if we have a solution that we need to act on, we could do that at the fall town meeting.
Now, what about the pumper truck? Because that's also like 20 years old.
Public truck is, no, it's 12 or 13
Okay,
years old.
okay.
So it should go for another 8 years or so. Since you brought it up, it does need a significant amount of repairs to the pump. Total cost is probably $25,000.
Beneficial mutual call.
Was that freezing damage? What was the?
Yes,
So that's the
It's a
answer.
water.
Fire.
correct.
It
That
was
was-
active, it then sat for a while.
So
really cold.
they pumped it. And all the water was put onto the fire.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a new water source to keep feeding water through the pump.
Yeah.
So the residual waters froze
Damaged the
and
pump.
damaged the pump.
Did other fire departments experience the same thing?
I don't know for sure.
And who pays for that?
We do.
We do.
So, yeah, it's,
That's not a mutual aid.
so yeah, in the mutual aid, you cover your own equipment. So if Essex had come to us and they're
I understand.
probably damaged, it would have been their dime.
I would be really.
So we will be looking at a potential, we're gonna inquire whether or not insurance will pick up any of this.
Yeah.
I'd be really curious. I understood there's 5 departments roughly, I think, that went to that fire. And I'd just be curious if other departments had similar problems with their vehicles. If they did, then hey, that's Mother Nature, that's weather. But if not, now I'm curious.
I think it's a good question about the fire fund, just the mechanics of it. So each year we put money into it.
Yeah.
Is this essentially an accounting thing? Or is the money actually sitting in an account somewhere?
Well, yeah, there are dollars sitting in,
Yeah,
I mean, it's all,
and we're getting
Saying, is it a
interest.
Separate bank.
it's
It's not
on paper. I mean, it's not it's not literally a separate bank,
Right.
So it's an account.
It's on paper. And if,
but it is cash.
Yeah.
so I know it's added to every single year. If we decided next year town wanted to pull money out of that fund and put it into a police vehicle fund or a DPW fund, could we do that? Or because it's already allocated in that, does that become hard to pull that back? Or reallocate it, I should say.
I believe that voters could reallocate,
Okay.
take a vote.
It's not a stabilization fund, so
Right,
it wouldn't
I
be
was gonna
one
say
of
it's not.
people's vote.
But it does take another vote to actually spend the fund,
Yeah,
so.
I'm just curious about what options are available.
It sounds much more flexible than like money. in
Stabilization,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
which has to go to the voters and the ballot.
Are we ready to move on to? So I think we've covered everything in the budget, is that correct? Is that correct, Andrea?
I still have OPEB and the
Yeah.
officer and command back pay.
That's in warrant articles,
Correct, yes.
right?
As far as the operating and capital, that is, I have
Mhm.
everything voted on.
Okay, so. Oh, so the OPEB is always a separate warrant article from the budget. So the amount in this year's warrant article is $289,300. And how much more is that than last year?
Yeah, it's 3 to 4% increase.
Okay,
Is there a page on this?
no, it was in the stuff,
I know it's,
the spreadsheet sent out today.
yeah, I've got that. I was just curious what it was over the last year. or so.
I
It's
don't have-
exactly 4% increase from last year.
Is it? Okay.
So do I have a motion to approve the OPEB contribution, the amount of $289,300. Peter moves, do I have a second? Marie second. Any discussion?
That's a quick question for Greg, like, this is that thing that we're, like, I know there's good shape, but like, we're like super good shape, right? Like,
Yes.
like,
Right, so we're on track to fully fund our retiree health costs by early 30s. 30, 32.
yeah, I'm just remembering this discussion, I can't remember the individual's name, you know, when we go through our annual audit and.
Dan Sherman.
Thank you, Dan Sherman. you
Sure,
know.
yeah, that's right.
And, you know, he compares where we are with other towns, and it's like, we're not even in the same ballpark, in a good way.
Correct.
Right.
Most communities have not been putting away this kind of money for
Right.
their liability.
Andrea, do we have the value of that fund as of June 30th of 2022?
I do.
Oh, good. Okay, I need it for the report. That's why I was
Yes.
asking.
Yeah, I'll have that for you.
Send that to me, I'd appreciate it.
I don't know, it's something we should just consider that, you know, we don't need to be this aggressive on it, you know? I mean,
Except we were timing it for trying to get this paid off before we had big increases in capital budgets.
Like a school.
yeah, again, just, you know, limited resources, we're increasing this department, that department, we're spending a lot on
We-
CapEx. you know.
We had an enormous amount of pushback from citizens in the community to get us going on this.
Fair enough, but, you know, we've hit sixth gear, I mean.
Would it make sense not to increase it in a year that we're not expecting such returns in the stock market? Because it's not. We're just gonna, it's not gonna be as efficient, so.
Well, it still is. You
So-
don't
so the
time
way-
your investments to.
Some would argue this is a good time doing that.
Right.
So,
It's the correct.
I mean, it's kind of complicated because at the level we're contributing, I think we get like a 7.25% ROI or 7.5%. And it's completely actuarial. So that's a whole nother thing. And if you look at the state and Deborah Goldberg and limitations she's putting on all this stuff about what they invest in or don't, it's frankly really surprising they can even get close to 7.5%, but
We're in a fund that's been returning much more than that.
yeah, so it's been, we're working quickly toward getting it off the books and getting it behind us. My recommendation is steady as she goes and let's get this done behind us, but.
And
I'm
Marie,
just
when
saying, if
should
we
we
need
be
to take
thinking
a
about?
breather now and then, like, that's not tragic, you know?
But that's why we're in the position we're in, is because we took a breather for so many years. Didn't
That's what
they?
the whole state is in, yeah.
Right, but if I remember Dan's comments, like, you know, there's some towns that are in such poor shape on this that like, he's even envisioning that, you know, the model is gonna have to be reworked because some of these other towns are just, they're just not gonna get it.
Right.
You know, so then I just wonder if it's like no good deed goes unpunished, right? So we're being aggressive, we're putting all this in, you know, we're hitting all our numbers and then someone goes, guess what? 80% of the other towns, they're never gonna, you know, get there and we have to rejiggle the whole puzzle. I don't know.
Marie, what should we be thinking of the likely time of the Essex Elementary? Is that early 30s? Because I thought there was some impression we had that it was moving sooner.
Oh, much.
that's their hope.
That's their hope.
They're applying this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Okay, because that's why I know this issue of trying to make
Yeah, I mean-
more, get things paid off, so we have more capacity for.
So it really sort of depends on when MSBA potentially approves the project. And then that really starts the clock moving in a pretty quick direction.
Okay.
So if the district gets approved in this round or the next round or whatever, it sort of sets the start date for all this.
Which could be well sooner than 32, I think was what I've been told.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
But I mean, a 4% increase, are we planning to keep increasing it until it's paid off? I mean, I'm not saying we
We've been
don't
running-
support it,
We've
That's
been
what we-
running at that.
That's what we've been doing.
we just been keep increasing it by 4%.
So Dan, Sherman, the auditor who been advising us,
That's the
when we
right
first set it up, he said, if you get on this schedule,
Yeah.
you'll be in good shape.
And this next report, we could take a hit because the investments would be done. So
Well,
the
definitely.
contribution will go up.
I just remember Dan commenting, I think he's in Wakefield and I think he's on the finance committee in his town of Wakefield. He was saying how far different we are from Wakefield and
Well, there are lots of towns who have zero money in an OPEB trust account. Many towns have not touched the shit.
right, so I don't know.
So do I have a motion in a second?
You do?
Should we take a vote? Peter,
Yes.
Andy.
Yeah.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Laura. Sarah, please.
I just, the next time Dan's in, I really think we should get into that and, you know. Cause like you said, if there's all these towns that are at zero. I mean, and we're at 80%, you know, I don't know where it is, but I know we're somewhere, like, to me, there's gonna be some. Big. Change, there's gonna, right,
I
like,
mean, one of the benefits of doing this too, Mike, is because we have this fund. In a really bad year, we could pay the current year's health insurance out of the trust fund.
Eventually, that's what we will do
Yeah.
going forward. And you could do it, as Sarah indicated, you could. If the sky was falling,
Yeah,
you could tap it.
so this fund is definitely ours.
yes.
Millions.
There's no way the state can,
No.
I mean, never say never.
No, it's, no, they would. This is our money.
How much money is it?
Over 3 million. It was over 3 million on June 30th of 2021. I don't have updated. numbers.
So it's another
380
280 beyond that.
something.
That was before everything.
But it's an account at the state, like,
No, it's a private,
It's
Somebody
in a,
called State,
um,
state-run fund.
Privately managed.
It's not like in a Fidelity account or Schwab. Or is it?
It's a privately
it's
managed
in crit.
commingled fund.
The Pension Reserve Investment Trust. We have a custodial arrangement with them so that they hold our OPEB trust funds with all the other towns and communities that have signed up with them.
But if theoretically, like just theoretically, like you said, tomorrow we wanted to take money out, pay. Would you say we could
Health
pay with it?
insurance.
Pay health insurance?
Yeah.
We could do it.
That's your decision.
Another warrant article that says officer in command fire salaries back pay, $1,310.
Yes, big money, I know.
But can
So
you just give a brief explanation?
I will. So, the firefighters union contract, was negotiated, at the. Their new contract starts FY 2020. That's kind of when the new fire chief came on, and they did not realize that there's a new calculation for officer in command. And that new calculation, what it says is we're paying them $1.50 per hour while serving as an acting lieutenant. But this new contract says that effective beginning of the contract, the rate will increase to $2 per hour with some conditions. One of them being you have to complete 5 years of continuous employment with the Manchester Fire Department. You have to complete a board certified fire officer 1 and instructor 1 and some other things. So what happens, we would pay them $1.50. But there was actually 2 officers that qualified over FY 20, 21, and 22 that didn't get the 50-cent difference. And now they're requesting it.
So because this is prior fiscal years, it takes a
5/6 or something.
I think it's 9/10.
9/10.
So, yeah,
So do I have a motion to approve the $1,310 in officer in command fire salaries back pay?
Don't everyone rush.
Tom moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dean will second. $310.
So this is an obligation?
right,
It's in the contract.
Yeah,
It's
I
in the
have an
union
option.
contract.
this is.
Okay, prefer to think of it that way.
I'll take a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Andy.
Yep.
Dean,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yeah,
Roy,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
Why did we have to go on? Right. This is prior budget.
We still have to appropriate stuff. And have we finished negotiating the new contract?
Yeah.
And so that's a potential funding issue down the line.
right, so we talked a little bit about, so, 2 options, we either put a lump sum in a new line item to cover potential wage settlements, or come back at the fall town meeting.
Yeah, and supplement.
And do a supplemental.
Yeah, we want to supplement. Okay. So we're finished with the budget. Did we go through the revenue and funding sources?
Freedom for flowers.
Yes.
Yeah, we added that to Parks and Rec.
In the memorial school. And the memorial.
Um, So you gave us a new revenue summary, which looks like up the anticipated receipts for a total of $2,849,000. That good, Mike?
Should I do a recap of our conversation or no? Late in the night.
I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're good.
It looks like they tied pretty well to 2022 actuals. Just kind of what we wanted. Right.
I mean, I'm just curious, Andrea, do we have any insight into current month, excise tax stuff or no? Still too early?
Motor vehicle,
Yeah, it's still too early.
Still too early, okay.
they've gone out,
Yeah, I paid mine.
$62.85.
Yeah, how would we not know
Let's do March first, right?
if they're all,
There was something, middle of March.
yeah, right, but once they're billed, you should know the number.
Right.
Who does the billing for us?
Treasurer collector.
Treasurer.
Andrew?
Yes, the assessors get a commitment file from the state. And then they submit it to the treasurer collector, and then we have Kelly and Ryan print it and mail it.
So we don't know what the total on that
Yeah, how do we not know the total? then?
spreadsheet was?
Let me see.
If I've already been sent out. It's on the column. Equals
We
sum.
we can find out.
Yeah.
We can find out.
Yeah, I don't have that packet yet.
Oh, okay. So the FinCom annual report, do people have content suggestions or you want me to just send out what I've done and you can look at it? I'm trying to add a section that kind of reflects additional expenses and dispatch savings. I don't have all those numbers yet, but I'm trying to do a section on that. And doing sections on explaining the additional staffing in police and fire.
You know, one of the things people ask about is, okay, this is this year, what are you thinking about for the next couple of years? And I know we haven't put this thing up, I keep looking geographically at that, but I do think that's a level of diligence this committee ought to do, even if it's only for 20 minutes, just to, what does this year, next year, and the year after look like? Because I think that final section of the report, you know,
Yeah.
anticipation of 25.
Yeah.
Is important,
So can we see that next week?
You can, we have that.
Okay. So we'll look at it in the next meeting. Write that down so it's on the agenda.
I just got a quick revenue question. I don't know if this is Andrew or Greg, but I'm gonna call it the Airbnb fee. whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Oh, that one.
asked, I was just talking to Debbie about that in my office, to see if we can get some numbers from the state.
We don't have anything.
No, we haven't received any. We should,
When did we implement it?
well, so we delayed it until October, so it was the last quarter of 22. That was in place.
So we implemented it last October. Okay,
So-
October, November, December.
So they're always a quarter behind. So, but we should be able to get a number soon.
Any updates on grants?
Soon, yeah.
I'm hearing that,
Got a preliminary indication. We need to wait for the official word.
but we're good to go.
It should be good.
Any updates, liaisons now? Oh, that's CPC.
So they revised their list to omit the we have refurbishment of the antique fire truck that we don't own yet.
Marblehead might have bought it, because I saw a blurb that they're rehabbing a 1939, and, you know. It seems so coincidental, I was like, what is? But
Well,
anyway.
supposedly it's, you know, it's committed to us, but the guy is not well, so that's why it's stalled.
So. So Jennifer kind of felt it was important that. The FinCom did endorse the CPC project, so. maybe we've done. Next item is we have 3 sets of minutes. January 19th, January 26th, and February 2nd. People have a chance to look at those.
I looked through it,
I think that.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 19th, January 26th, and February 2nd? Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Tom seconds.
How should I do this? I was not here for 2 of those 3 meetings. So should I not, I shouldn't vote on
Just abstain. You can
for
abstain.
2, but I want to approve 1.
Okay, yeah,
Is that?
Yep.
Okay. The second I was here for, but the other January ones I was not here. I had conflicts.
okay. So I'm
Okay,
gonna take a vote.
okay,
Peter.
I'm abstain, yes,
Okay. So you're approving the 2 minutes.
I am.
Okay, Andy,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes, cubed.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
and Sarah, please.
I was confused. I thought typically we vote them one at a time, that's.
Yeah, I thought so too, but that's,
It's late.
I don't know.
we have new procedures.
The hour is like.
Anything else we need to discuss?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
So do you want to, go over each of the articles next time?
Yes. Yes. Warrant, we'll do the warrant, we do the multi-year
Can we get a draft of
Yeah, I'll send that out.
and the annual report. So my plan on the annual report is hopefully to incorporate the rest of these numbers, and I can figure them out. I'm gonna meet with Andy Monday morning, and then hopefully I'll be able to send it to Andy so that maybe he can get it up in SharePoint for us.
Sure.
So people have an opportunity to look at it before March 2nd meeting. And then I would ask for all updates to be done by end of day on Sunday, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So that I can get it to town hall on Monday.
So that'd be the 5th of March, so you,
Yeah. And I'll get it to town hall on the 6th because they're supposed to print around the 7th.
I see.
Right?
Yes, thank you.
So when does the select board get the warrants?
On the 6th.
Well, usually we get a packet in advance of our
But I'll
meeting.
give you the one, I'll get early next week. I'll do that.
Do I have a motion for adjourn?
you do.
Peter moves, Andy seconds. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Speaking Sandy. Right? SBAB or whatever it's called. So that starts